Almost 10 years ago, in 2016, Sam Altman, who we now know as the CEO of OpenAI, announced plans to fund one of the most in-depth studies on UBI, Universal Basic Income. Well, as of right now, August 2024, the results are in. They officially landed this July. We have an incredibly in-depth breakdown, which I'm going to share with you in this video. The results of the largest Universal Basic Income trial program in the United States ever done, thanks to Sam Altman. This study is incredibly comprehensive. I'm really impressed with how deep it goes. There has been hundreds, in fact, over 200 trial programs of UBI done around the world, and interestingly enough, the majority of these trials have actually been done right here in the US. But the US is also very divided on UBI. In fact, there are several Republican-run US states that have actually banned UBI in their jurisdiction. The reason that universal basic income fits into today's narrative and is something we should actually be looking at is because we are headed into a jobless society. That's right, the full automation of all human labor. And if you look at life from an optimistic perspective and you see the world for what it truly is, we live by default in a land of opportunity and abundance of natural resources. But it's often humanity that has screwed that up. In a world where jobs will be completely automated, we are going to have to come together and figure out how should society adapt and evolve. What societal changes need to happen for us to avoid the huge and looming problem of mass homelessness due to enormous shifts in the job market. And what happens when every single company benefits from automation and the billion-dollar companies get more and more profitable? UBI is a good solution. And in today's video, I'll break down this 3-year study from OpenResearch with Sam Altman heavily involved and leading the project. And for some context on this, check out my video, Will UBI Solve AI Job Disruption?, where I break down a lot of stereotypes and labels that humanity has associated with poverty. Unfortunately, a lot of those came through government regulations. Welfare is broken. It doesn't work in its current state. And if universal basic income was applied in its truest sense, universally, not dependent on conditions, then we might be able to solve the problem. The problem being poverty, not the person. All right, so let's dive into this study by OpenResearch and Sam Altman, the largest UBI trial program ever done in the US. All right, so we're looking at Sam Altman's study. This was conducted by a company he's a board member in and helped start. That company is OpenResearch, which is a nonprofit research lab. So the study itself is super in-depth, and the way they laid it out is amazing. The study is the result of 3 years of research, and it concluded this July of 2024. So the first question is, how would you spend an extra $1,000 a month? There were these top categories given: housing, food, childcare, healthcare, education, energy, commute. And of course, it mentions that there's more. And I agree, that's not all of the ways in which you could spend $1,000, but those are certainly the top ways. You can slide the bars to kind of put it into context and see where the numbers land, and even think through a scenario: what would you need to spend an extra $1,000 a month on? You can see national averages here, which is interesting. That cost for housing has gone up so much. It is unreal. When I talk to people that are just in apartments, not even houses, the cost of everything, especially here in the US, has gone up so much. So featured findings right below that question, how would you spend an extra $1,000 a month, include health, spending, employment, agency being the ability to have freedom to think about, almost like autonomy, think about, plan, and pursue goals, and then moving, which was interesting. So overall, the health side, of course, the findings line up with other UBI studies. There was an increase in spending on people's health. There was an increase on thinking about just even going and taking care of themselves, like dental care. A lot of people that don't have the resources and the funds to go see a dentist, it's just not top of mind if you don't have any money. So with something like universal basic income, you can actually take care of those basic needs. And then a decrease in problematic drinking by 20% was really interesting. 53% reported a decrease in the number of days using painkillers not prescribed to them. That's a huge decrease. So those are pretty interesting findings. But again, these line up with a lot of other UBI studies where people just get smarter and they make less bad choices because a lack of money creates one of the greatest stress triggers that exists in humanity. So overall in spending, people are talking about paying off their car, and they're relating that to paying off a portion of their life. So big expenses like car and rent, that's life and how you get to live it. And if you can decrease your costs there, well, everything else opens up. There was also an increase in monthly spending, so the economy benefits. Businesses benefit from UBI, and that correlates to studies done in Alaska and Africa, where it was found that entrepreneurs that wanted to be entrepreneurs actually had customers and the means to sell their own products. Because universal basic income, the idea is it's universal. And so everyone gets it, which means people can start businesses, start ventures, start investing money in hobbies even, and then sell the byproduct of those ventures. And then the people on the other end that are also getting UBI, the customers, the consumers, can put that back into those new ventures. There was an increase of spending on basic needs when it came to food, transportation, rent. And then this is really interesting. I thought this was a high number. 26% increased in support to others. So people paying for others and spending that money on supporting them. The highest monthly spending went to food and beverages, which makes a lot of sense. The cost of food has gone up so much. I can't believe it. For me, I eat very healthy and organic, vegan, non-GMO, non-processed options are just so costly. So if you put a chart of my life together, yeah, food's probably at the top, because when we go to a restaurant, it's a vegan raw food restaurant, and a single food bowl can be a ridiculous amount of money. For two people, I remember spending almost $70 at a restaurant here in Scottsdale. So the system is definitely broken as it stands, which is why I'm excited for the coming wave of automation, removing human labor and opening up something like UBI. Okay, over here on employment, cash provided the flexibility to make employment decisions that aligned with their goals and values. So a lot of people just take a job that they don't want. Gallup did a study, and 70% of our working world is unhappy at work, leading to high rates of depression. That is not good. That is so not good. That means that the majority of people at work are unhappy, and they carry that into their life. Think about all the people that have suppressed talent that they can't even put back into society or into an outlet like creating something beautiful that benefits humanity, because they're stuck in something they hate. And that depression it suppresses creativity. So when there is extra cash like UBI, it allows people, this is a frequent finding of UBI studies, it allows people to actually align their work with what they love doing. I'm in a position for once to be picky, said one of the recipients. They can hold out and find the right job. And the fewer work hours, this is always a concern for employment, is less than 2 hours, so not that big of a deal. And the increase in a job search was actually 10%. So instead of sitting around and being lazy and not working at all, there's an increase in searches for perfect fit jobs that actually match skills. And the decrease in work hours is not by that much. Agency, of course, having independence, empowerment, that is so important to a sense of individuality and feeling like you have a place in the human race. So that's why I truly believe that if money was considered a basic right, we'd see a completely different pattern in the human race in happiness. So when given that agency, people pursue education. It's interesting, there's an increase in actually creating a budget. That is the opposite of, well, they'll just spend it on whatever. That's the complete opposite, right? And then 26% more likelihood to start a business or help start a business among Black recipients. Moving is really interesting. recipients are talking about this allowed us to move. We were actually able to go where we want to go. There was an 11% increase in just moving across neighborhoods. And one neighborhood can make all the difference for a school district, for quality of life, safety, etc. Search for housing went up. Recipients were 5% more likely to pay for housing instead of just staying with family or friends. And then there's a graph of those findings. So that's the majority of what they found in the study, which is pretty cool. The result of quite in-depth study across multiple years. And the final results were around, they found the greatest impact on spending per month on basic needs, which again points to the cost of everything. They're just mass inflation. We're living in a bubble that's about to burst. It's going to be interesting to see how society responds. I mean, the best thing you could do is lean into AI, learn how to use it, and get ready for this coming bubble. If you're AI proof, meaning you have AI skills, you're going to be much more in demand. Planning for the future, cash, universal basic income has an impact on planning to pursue education, a willingness to delay instant gratification. Again, that goes completely against the narrative that is often fabricated by entities that report on UBI. That is again and again in history. There's been a lot of fabrication in UBI reports. Oh, it makes people more lazy. It makes people spend their money on more drugs, more alcohol, more pain pills, more drunkenness. No, actually the opposite. There's an increase in self-reported willingness to delay instant gratification. And people actually set a budget with when they have more cash. It's really interesting. So I hope this helped give you some insights into the study and also just continue to challenge the norm, maybe a pattern in history we've been taught that is inaccurate to the truth. I'm a big fan of seeking out the truth. I'm really glad, for one, that Sam Altman and the team at OpenResearch put this report together. It's pretty amazing. Thanks so much for watching this video. I want to take a second to honor you. If you, like me, find yourself in a place of challenging you might have been raised in, taught to believe, and maybe even thought of as the truth for a period of time. Listen, we got to challenge everything we think because we are headed into a completely new society because of automation. We're headed into a new era with a new type of intelligence that is not human. And we need to solve for the society that we can have one of massive abundance as soon as possible and start thinking in terms that are much wider than labels, political beliefs, old closed-minded parties, and quite frankly, indoctrination, things we were told to believe without asking questions. Now is the time to ask questions, and if that's you, props. Be sure to hit subscribe to my channel, Julia McCoy. I explore all the recesses of the AI rabbit holes and take you down the ones worth exploring. Thanks for venturing down this path with me. I look forward to hearing from you in the comments. I read every single one. I'll respond back if time permits. I'm so glad you're here, and I'll see you down the next rabbit hole.